I've watched the children come and go. A late, long march into spring. I sit and watch those children jump in the tall grass.
You can't define autism in a sentence. Autism is a very complicated disorder.
Autism is not a disease, and it's not a mental illness. It's almost a way of being. A lot of stuff gets put out there that is fairly sensationalist. The miracle cure of the year and the certainty about what the cause is. And we were always looking for, what do we really know? What's really there? What's really happened? In looking for stories about the past of autism, we turned to the original article written by Leo Kanner in 1943, in which he first used the term autistic. And we had kind of heard through the autism grapevine that maybe Donald was still around. Donald being the boy who was described by Kanner as case number 1. Kanner was a little bit loose with the confidentiality. We knew his birth date, and we knew his first name was Donald, and we knew his last name began with T, and we knew he lived in Forest, Mississippi. And we found out that in Forest, Mississippi, a family whose name began with T had made a contribution to an autism society. And we looked up what was that full name, and then we went to the phone book, and the last name was Triplet. Were there any Donald triplets? Bingo, there was. And Caren, you know her son has autism. So Caren has the instincts to know when she's meeting somebody who has autism, and even when she's hearing an outgoing phone message.
Hi, this is Donald, and it's, have a wonderful spring and a wonderful fall and a wonderful winter, and I'll talk to you soon. It was just you just knew it was somebody with autism.
And she called me back and said, this has got to be the guy. Donald, as a child, he was confused about how to use language. He had no interest in other human beings. He was obsessed with spinning objects. They were kind of told, wash your hands of this child, give him to the state, get on with your lives. He's a little boy, he's 50 miles from his parents' house. They can't come to visit him more than twice a month. And he did really badly there.
A perfect situation for somebody who's withdrawn to become more withdrawn.
We don't actually know what finally drove his parents to get him out of there. The director of the facility even told them they were making a mistake. They literally said, just let him alone. And the fact that they didn't do that, at a minimum, suggests that they were not the kind of people who were just going to cave into top medical advice, which in those days was very unusual. Many, many, many people with autism have skills, and some of them are enviable skills. But mostly adults with autism inspire fear or wariness or pity, which is just a really wasted energy and emotion.
I have a 16-year-old son, and if he's 5'10", and if he walks by you and he's mumbling to himself, you have a 2-year-old, you think, I want to get my kid away from him. And he's the most harmless creature out there.
Donald is such an exception to the life that people with autism have as adults. Forest, Mississippi reacted to Donald in a very benevolent, inclusive way. We met people who knew him in high school, and he was just known as that brilliant kid, odd, but really, really smart and really good in math. And I think people really, really mean it.
On a number of occasions, when we were interviewing people or trying to learn about Donald, we were warned.
Yeah.
If you mess with him, we know where to find you. Which is, I don't think in 25 years of journalism anybody warned me that if I messed with somebody that I interviewed, that I was in physical harm.
Donald's life has turned out to be an enviable life. He's in his late 70s, he's healthy, he's independent, he's happy. I mean, to this day, Donald is quirky. His speech is not at all fluid. His interests can go all over the place. But we saw him in society with people who totally get that. There's a group of men who, since the late 60s, have coffee together for half an hour every morning. Donald does the cryptogram from the newspaper, and he rarely looks up. But every now and then, without looking up, he injects his point of view. They don't find it odd anymore. They do. They know it's odd. They don't care, and they kind of roll with it. Donald is such a hopeful exception, such an inspirational exception. Something went right there.
Hey, those kids are looking at me. I told